Fantasy VII Remake has had some very impactful reveals thus far, showing off many of the major characters and how they'll function in battle. While we anticipate even more reveals, gameplay trailers, and demonstrations going forward, all leading up to the game's eventual release, there's still so much that we haven't seen yet that I'm, well, dying to see. So far, there is one character, however, that hasn't been shown off yet in any capacity, and there's a bit of a mystery surrounding him. That is, of course, our red friend Nanaki, also known as Red 13. Nanaki is a bit of an interesting case when it comes to Final Fantasy VII Remake in multiple ways. First of all, there's how he's introduced. In a scene that would definitely get more than a PG-13 rating, Professor Hojo wants to produce a hybrid species between Nanaki and Aerith with her Cetra blood to create a specimen that would live long enough to conduct research on. And instead of doing things the regular mad scientist way, like stealing their DNA and creating something in a test tube, Professor Hojo decided it would just be better if they made one directly. Like, really directly. Oh, and also he planned on watching too. You know, I'm pretty sure that's not at all how biology works, but what do I know? I'm just a YouTuber. In either case, it's going to be really interesting to see how Square Enix can manage to keep the same provocative nature of the scene. That is, under the assumption they'll be trying to keep their usual T rating for the franchise. After freeing our best boy, he then becomes a party member. The only problem is that Final Fantasy VII Remake is a game that ends in Midgar, and he's acquired shortly before we escape the city. The implications of this on the remake is, assuming they don't have any massive changes to the structure of already determined events, which they likely are, then it's quite possible that Red 13 won't be playable at all. The way things are now, if they were to make him playable, he would be available for a few short segments at the end at most. Making a brand new playable character is a very large task, and it takes a tremendous amount of time and resources. Currently, it's hard to imagine they would do all that work just to utilize him in a few scenes, just so that the game could end shortly after. That said, the alternative to that argument is that they have to do all that work anyways for subsequent releases of Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is also fairly valid. But since you utilize him for such a short time, you wouldn't have any time to properly level him or do anything else with him. It's possible this first game will merely treat him as a sort of guest party member until you arrive at game 2. There's also the overall design of him with regards to this remake. Considering that the remake seems as though it may be using ideas previously cut from the original Final Fantasy VII, Nanaki certainly had some interesting concepts surrounding him, one of which was that he was originally a member of Soldier, being a beast type. This has way too many implications on the story, and of course that idea is probably not going to happen with this remake. However, one thing I could see returning are the clones of Red 13 that were originally produced by Hojo. In earlier scripts for the game, there were two clones of Red 13. One had blue fur and the other one had purple fur, with the names Cobalt 14 and Indigo 15. After defeating them, the party would have confronted two more clones, where the party would have had to fight both clones as well as Red 13, and the party would have had to figure out which one is the real Nanaki in order to avoid killing him. It's also said when defeating them, he would have asked the party to spare their lives, as he explains that his kind of course is near extinction. This is actually a really cool idea, and something I'd love to see come back in the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Then there's actually controlling him, which will be quite a bit different than the rest of the bipedal humanoid characters. In combat, it would only make sense if he was significantly faster and more agile than the rest of your party. For that reason, I can think of no better example than the Lion King world in Kingdom Hearts 2, which sees you taking control of Lion Sora. Lion Sora controls pretty well. When observing his movements and animation, you could see how he could easily fit into a combat system style like this. Because of this, I see him as the ideal way to handle Nanaki in combat, and when you consider that both the director of Kingdom Hearts and the battle planner for Kingdom Hearts 2 are involved with this project, I think it's safe to assume that's how they'll model the gameplay implementation for him. Ultimately, it shouldn't be too much longer before we finally see Nanaki, but there's a potential for how Square Enix should handle him in the first game of this remake. And hopefully whatever it is that they end up doing with him, it will come with a great degree of love and respect for his character. After all, I think Nanaki's arc is one of the most compelling in the entire game. So Ultima Weapons, do you think Nanaki will still be a fully playable character, despite him currently being very limited in appearance? Or do you think they'll save his party member status for game 2? Subscribe, click the bell icon, and let me know in the comments below. And if you value the content on this channel, be sure to check out the Patreon for the Night Sky Prince. We wouldn't be anywhere without the support to people like the Sorceress Knight, who directly support the channel so I can keep all these videos coming to you guys. So if you'd like to support the channel more directly, this is your opportunity. Link in the description below. Shout out to the Sorceress Knight and the rest of the Ultima community.